All right, I will start again. So I'm Carmita Smiles. I'm a 500-hour yoga instructor, wellness coach, and vegan nutritionist. And this is an informal conversation on Sankalpa. So my first question would be, has anyone heard of the word Sankalpa? So if you have heard of the word Sankalpa, where did you hear it? Now, has anyone ever set a Sankalpa? If so, how did you feel about it? If you've heard of Sankalpa and or set your own, was it around the time of the general New Year in January? And did you then also set New Year's resolutions or look to it as being your New Year's resolution? These are some prerequisite questions. So if you have not heard of a Sankalpa, it is an word that comes from the East. So it is a Sanskrit word, and or some people might say Sanskrit. And a Sankalpa can be looked at as an affirmation, an inner truth, an intention or resolve, which is typically what an Eastern definition of that would include. It can be an intention that's turning into action to do something. And it's usually a bit deeper than a resolution. So when I say resolution, I'm talking about New Year's resolutions. In history, it's been very popular to talk about, what's your resolution for the year? But Sankalpa can be related more so to a characteristic that you or another might have. So it can be saying to yourself for Sankalpa, this is who I am right now. I have gratitude for myself at this time. I am enough. But who am I also looking to be? Where am I looking to transform in my life? Typically, when we look at Westernized New Year's resolutions, they're a bit more physical. They may not be heart related, so to speak, in that manner of looking at oneself and having gratitude. Typically, in the past, and in my experience, it's been related to, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go for a run this year. I'm going to do less shopping. I'm going to break a habit. I'm going to stop smoking, stop drinking. I'm going to lay low, not party as much, and or something like that. Something that's physical, something that is action related, but in related to habits, into things that are being done, things in the life that maybe you're not proud about or a person isn't proud about. And so a New Year's resolution can have kind of this negative connotation to it. And it doesn't really talk about, where you're at as a person. It doesn't talk about having acceptance and gratitude. And some would say it comes from ego. When you talk about, well, why are you doing the resolution? Now, for someone who wants to quit smoking or drinking, that's a positive thing, right? If you're, smoking less or drinking less, then we see that as a positive thing because it can be beneficial to the physical body. But when we're looking at, a Sankalpa, it's a little bit different because it's coming from the heart and it's saying that I'm good enough. But it's saying, what else would I like to do in my life? What else would I like to add? And it actually can be a bit more broad, which I'm going to give definitions about that versus the resolution. It's a statement of change, but it's also something to be achieved versus a Sankalpa. We might not say that we're achieving something. We are just going to be that thing now, kind of like, which I'll get in. That'll make more sense when I get into the examples. Now, there's also intentions, which intentions can be related to goals and or Sankalpas, but they are very much related to Sankalpas for this talk. And then goals are more so related to resolutions. So intentions can be related to resolutions or sankalpas or goals, but for this talk, we're going to relate sankalpas to intentions and then goals to resolutions. And talking about sankalpas being an affirmation and inner truth and intention, it's because an intention can be seen as something something that you're aiming for, something that can help in the healing process. It can be very general, basic. It's not like a detailed plan. So it could be, if you ever heard the quote, that person has good intentions, or oh, good intentions get you nowhere, or oh, this person has bad intentions. It's almost like this general kind of persona of someone, or kind of coming from someone's personality type. So, because it kind of is in the mix of the values and the kind of the standards and such of that person. So you have an intention can be seen as this plain aim. And I say it can be related to the healing process because it can be so kind of this general kind of understanding. And then when you're thinking of resolutions, that's something that's, more physical. So intentions might not be a part of that because it is more of that characteristic, that persona, that level of you're not seeing action really take place. It's just this generality. Now, when we think of goals and goals being related to resolutions, it's because goals can be steps of action that get you to a resolution. So, for example, if you want to quit smoking, then you might have your resolution is that you quit smoking, but then your goals are that, okay, so my goal for this week is that I, smoke 2 less cigarettes. Or if you're drinking, then it's, okay, I don't want to go out as much and drinking. So I'm going to have, I'm not going to have alcohol at home. I'm not going to buy it at home. So those are goals. Those are steps that support your resolution, but that's taking a physical action. So that is something that can be also, your goals can be reliant on others. Goals and resolutions can have a lot of outside factors and considerations versus your sankalpa or intention is like 100% you. So it's all on you and your systems and your values. So it's really that sankalpa, it comes from the heart, and you kind of resonate with what's going on with my life, where am I at, where would I like to be from a different format or standard of things. So not much. Come here, you crazy girl. So I'm gonna just talk now a little bit about these steps in taking a sankalpa. So we have these kind of lines between. So you have goals and resolutions, which are action based and can have outside considerations. And then we have intentions and sankalpas, which don't really rely on outside influence, outside considerations. They're inward based. And so, in simple terms, a sankalpa can come from the heart. So, and it's because it's starting with intention. It's predominantly, if you're looking at duality and good and bad, it can be something that's coming from a positive intention, a positive enlightenment and change. And so there are different ways that you can get there. It might be that you're not even sure like what your sankalpa is, because when talking about a sankalpa and it being also an inner truth, that kind of kicks into this finding yourself, this like awareness of self. So when you're working on your sankalpa, you're looking to connect with your inner self, your inner truth, your intention, as I mentioned, of where things start and how that intention can set you up with your sankalpa. So for an example of an intention might just be that you're like, I want to just do better this year. Very, very general, not very specific. You just maybe have some parts about life that you're not too sure about. So in beginning to find your sankalpa, you would say, my intention is that I want to just be better this year. Now, that could switch. So if you're looking at something like a New Year's resolution, it might be that, oh, I when I'm looking at being better, my goal is to follow these steps to then maybe, drink less or buy more, fresh veggies and fruits and eat better. Versus your Sankalpa intention, if you're just having a general intention of, I want to be better, I want to do better this year, and you're not really defining into the details, it could just be that your Sankalpa is, looking at it from a human standpoint and wanting to do better or be better. That could just be that maybe you want to be more considerate. Maybe you're someone who speaks and you don't really think about what you're telling others. Or maybe it's, how you respond to someone who says something that makes you upset. So that kind of can show examples of, intentions related to New Year's resolutions that can be set with goals are kind of action, physical based, versus the Sankalpa can be an intention that's starting with you, right? It's how, how you're responding to a situation or how you want to be considerate. And that has nothing to do with the outside world. Yes, you're dealing with outside sources, you're dealing with outside people, but it doesn't deal with the outside world to a degree where, someone else can take away from you that intention. Someone else can't physically take your considerations away. And so to start in the steps of looking or kind of creating a Sankalpa, an intention is a nice place to start because it's just this generality. So you have your intention, for example, as I mentioned, like, oh, I just want to be better. So maybe in that process too, then now it's for building a Sankalpa, it can be recommended that you take some time to sit, you take some time to find quiet, and you allow yourself to be in this space of openness, and you allow yourself to connect to your heart. And sitting in quiet or silence, it allows you to come into understanding of yourself. It allows you to be open up to what higher consciousness, to the universe, or what your mind can find through all the thoughts when you're able to find quiet. So that is something that's different between Sankalpas and resolutions also. New Year's resolutions can be physical things that one is doing and, physical changes that want to be met. Like if you know that you eat a certain food and you want to eat less of that food, that's seeing this physical action. But in a Sankalpa, it's something where it comes from your inside. So it's coming from your heart. So you might be sitting in your quiet. You're not seeing a physical thing to change. You're allowing yourself to, in that silence, welcome words of peace and gratitude, to understand that you are enough, but then be open to what the heart has to offer. So the Sankalpa, it's something that you might not see a physical change in from the start, but by you changing yourself, it turns into action and transformation of self. So that might be something to know. So when connecting with Sankalpa, it's taking time to sit with self, to find a moment of quiet and see what comes up, especially if you're unsure of what your Sankalpa is or where you want to take it. It's that you're sitting in quiet and you're allowing yourself to go, oh, like what is coming up? What can be tweaked? What can be different? I love myself, but what am I looking to transform? And so in taking that time to find quiet, you tune in and see what comes up for you. And you're allowing then this Sankalpa to welcome itself into light. And it's about something that can start small, but be so life-changing. You can sometimes use a Sankalpa as a way of transformation, as a way that creates a life that you wish to live, or a life that can welcome some sort of neutral or positive experience or mindset or way to be. And so a Sankalpa then can also go into some examples, as some would say, it can be a commitment to self. It can be, as I mentioned, a transformation. It's about loving yourself. It's about living your highest truth. So when we're talking in yoga or wellness or consciousness or highest truth, it's just as if someone was saying, like, I want to be more honest with myself. Sometimes as people, we do things for others, we people please, or we work a job, or we do different things for certain reasons, certain circumstances. But it's also then saying, even if I'm doing these things, is this something I enjoy? How does this affect me? How does this affect me, emotionally, spiritually, and also physically? And is this something I agree with? Do my morals and beliefs, align with this? And so in taking that time to find stillness and quiet and connect to what comes up, you're allowing kind of these eureka moments. You're allowing yourself to be open to going, I don't think that's working anymore. But if I'm being honest with myself, this is what I would like, or this is what I enjoy doing. And that's an example of how you can find your way to your highest truth. It's really just being honest with yourself and living an honest life. And that's what a lot of people or yogis and things can mean when they say living your highest truth. And also connecting to highest self. Those two are kind of one and the same. You're being open when we kind of listen to the little voice, when we tune in to what our heart wants and we allow our mind to quiet, we're connecting to outside of ourselves, our unconscious self, our highest self. And then that supports living our truth. And so Sankalpa can also welcome clarity about the life that one wants to live. And when it arrives, begin to live it. And so with those words of thinking about when it arrives and beginning to live it, a Sankalpa can be seen as something that you can do right now. You can be that change right now. There is a quote out there that says, like, be the change you want to see or you long to see. And that aligns with that same thing. So if you're looking at goals and New Year's resolutions, they're action-based. They're predominantly physical, especially in the Western world, less drinking, less eating, less this, less that. And so it's almost as if you're taking away from yourself. You're kind of saying, like, I don't like this about myself. I'm not good enough yet, as some people say it. Not everybody sees it this way, depending on the resolution, but it can kind of, when they're habit related, it's kind of as if you're not accepting yourself and who you are. But when you have this Sankalpa, when you have this moment that's coming in, when you're connecting with your heart to who you want to be, you can then be that change. You can then, connect with yourself daily. You can check in, you can journal to then kind of see where you're at and be like, what can I do from this point on to be the better person, to be more considerate. And you start being mindful of yourself. You're aware, you're self-aware and aware of what you're doing, what you have going on, how you're communicating with other people. Versus New Year's resolutions can be seen differently because, if you're saying, oh, I don't want to, do a certain thing. I don't want to, drink a certain thing or eat a certain thing, or I want to get to the gym and exercise and look a certain way. That still requires more action. It takes a little bit more length, those steps to get to it, to build up to what you're saying to be, that you want to be, versus that Sankalpa, you're just being it right then and there. So if you're saying, oh, I want to listen a little bit better to people. I just want to take more time to fully hear and understand what they're saying. If I don't understand it, I'll tell them I don't understand it and they can explain it differently. But before I jump in and offer my words, I'm going to make sure that they're finished. That's something that right then and there, when you leave outside of your quiet space, you could go outside, or maybe you run into someone that and you can start practicing that right now. And that becomes then, as you're practicing it more, becomes a part of you. It can become a part of your personality. It can become a part of your characteristic. It can be tough in the beginning because our mind works in kind of these patterns. Our brain, the more we do something, the more that thing is easy for us to do, right? And so if you're looking at something like neuroplasticity of the mind, I just did a talk on this, and they say like it's more like roads. So even with our habits, whether they're physical habits or kind of characteristics of ourselves, if we're doing something, our mind just wants to do that thing. So it does still kind of take some effort to come into awareness and kind of tune in to what the mind is saying or doing or what it wants. And so if you're working at, oh, I'm going to listen to this person, but then you're still working with getting excited, it can be enough to start to bring that awareness into, oh, I said I wasn't going to cut them off, and I'm going to wait for them to fully finish what they're saying, and then I'm going to speak. So it just takes some time. And then eventually it just becomes natural to sit there, not have anxiousness about it or excitement about it, fully hear a person, and then speak. So hopefully that makes sense with like an example of a Sankalpa, because then that's building character, that's connecting to the heart. That's something that's beneficial for yourself because it allows yourself to be less excitable, less anxious, and it has a positive outcome because someone else might be like, wow, that person really listened to me. That was really nice. So they asked me questions about what they didn't understand. That's really nice. And so it can be something like that. All right, so I'm going to go over the steps again, and then I'm going to give some examples of intentions that can help to then align with Sankalpas. And so, as I mentioned earlier, when you're beginning to connect or understand and discover a Sankalpa that you'd like to set, which is just an intention or resolve for the new year, since it's something that can be, coming from the heart, it's something that can, be a characteristic, a personality trait, something that maybe isn't always seen through physical exchange or differences, that it can be positive to take time for quiet to see what's coming up. Because in that Sankalpa, you're saying, okay, I'm here in life and I'm doing good, but how can I make this a little bit, transformative even more? How can I make this better? And so you're allowing yourself to sit with that and understand and see what comes up. Now, when building a Sankalpa, especially when you're first getting into it, it can be good to keep it positive, keep it simple, and then you can adapt as time goes on. So as I mentioned, maybe it's that, oh, I want to do better. I just want to be better. I don't know how yet. I just want to be a better person. And then it gets in that sitting of, oh, I could be more considerate, listening to other people when they speak. And then it's, okay, now you've done this over such and such time. You notice that you're more considerate when people speak. And now it can be, something else to that. It could be maybe now you've been considerate and you listen to people, but maybe you still have some fear about telling them how you really feel about what they're saying or giving a truthful response. So to adapt as time goes on with your Sankalpa, it could be that now you're like, okay, I'm considerate of what people are saying, but now I'm going to, let them know how I feel when they ask me for my opinion. And it doesn't have to come off mean, doesn't have to come off emotional or negative, but when they ask for my opinion, I'm going to offer what I truthfully think about it. This can be really hard for people pleasers. I know I come from a very, people pleasing category of life and jobs and things that I've had. And so, sometimes it is just, yeah, you just say yes and agree with people, and you don't really agree with what they're saying or even when they ask your opinion. So it can take time, once again, to build up to that. So that's how you can keep building on your Sankalpa for change and transformation with self. Another way to build your Sankalpa, whether in the beginning or after time, you could write them down and set prompts up or say it as a daily affirmation. So you could write your Sankalpa down, you could journal it, you could write it on your mirror, lipstick or whatnot. Or you could set up journal props and, go through it and kind of review your day later and check in and see like, okay, this is what I wrote down. How did I do that? Or you could just speak it out in daily affirmation. That's going to welcome that mind body connection. Once again, you're coming into awareness with yourself. You're opening up to this change and mindfully, and you're kicking with that neuroplasticity. You're changing patterns that might want to do something that you're looking to change in self, and building new roads, building new patterns in the mind. And you want to be patient and kind to yourself when doing so. So something with a Sankalpa that's a little bit more Eastern based and not so much in the West is, in the West, we tend to look at New Year's resolutions and intentions and goals and things that we have for the year from January. But really, you don't have to do that with the Sankalpa. You could start a Sankalpa or an intention any time of year. And when looking at it from the East and in the practice of yoga, a Sankalpa can also be looked at as a vow. And typically it's a vow that you make for yourself, and the goal is 40 days. So it's when you're building a Sankalpa, you're saying, okay, traditionally it gives me 40 days to work on this thing, on this intention, on what I'm looking to change. And then at the end of that 40 days, you look at how you've done, you review what's going on, and then you can choose to transform it, change it, or adapt it, or you can stay with it, or just stop it. So it has kind of a different aspect than with New Year's resolutions. It might be to quit a habit fully. So there might not be as short or long as a timetable, depending on what that thing is. There might be no timetable at all. It might be that you're doing less of something until the number is different completely. Or it might be that, if you're, I'm looking to be more active and I'm going to walk, every day this month for 5 minutes, and I'm going to walk every day next month for 10 minutes, and then so on, so on, so on. And so that's different. That's a physical thing. There's goals. The goals are that I'm going to start with this and walk this much, then walk this much the next month, and then walk this much the next month. And so you're not really committing to this 40-day vow like you would in the East. It could be, it's your, if that month has 30 days in it, you're committing to that vow, that change in 30 days. But then it turns to that transforming and check-in into then at that 31st day, and then what happens on that 60th day, and then once again. So New Year's resolutions can be a little bit more opening, a little bit more free, and so they're not as pushing for this commitment. Now, being in the West, or if this is something new, or if you're not really sure if you want to do 40 days, that's fine. That's just something that happens to be more Eastern, is when in the East, if you're practicing and you are having a new Sankalpa, it just tends to be that traditionally it's 40 days and then a check-in, and then you adapt and transform it as it best fits your life. And so with the Sankalpa and vowing and having 40 days, it also can awaken your willpower. The longer you're working on that and you're building, it's going to build confidence. It's going to build self-love, reassurance with self, and that motivation, encouragement, inspiration to keep going, and welcoming that awareness. So that's something too, though, that can be found, I feel, on New Year's resolutions and the Sankalpa. But when you add that little bit of gratitude to it, when you add this, like, this is coming from myself, I'm giving myself gratitude, I'm showing myself love, that I'm changing, I'm transforming, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. That full circles back to you're being patient with yourself, you're being kind to yourself, you're being conscious and aware, and it can help build that willpower. Versus New Year's resolutions sometimes tend to kind of just flop. They kind of can just disappear. And So they can be looked at. Some people then go, I'll do it again next year. Or some people are hard on themselves. Maybe their goal was to lose, I want to lose 1 pound, every 2 weeks, in weight loss. And if they don't do that, or if they have a bad day, sometimes that person, they can be more hard on themselves. I've seen that with other people that I know. I've seen that with friends of mine, where when they have this New Year's goal, or they want to quit smoking, or they want to do this action and change themselves physically, and then they lack, they're kind of down on themselves, or they kind of downplay it and kind of feel wishy-washy. And so with that Sankalpa, you're coming into that willpower, you're transforming, and you're being kind to yourself about it. And New Year's resolutions don't really talk about that part. They don't talk about showing yourself gratitude. They don't talk about, being kind to yourself. It's just either you do it, or you did it, or you didn't, and you don't. And it can be a little more like, get it done or not. And so, you're kind of softening that, you're softening that and connecting with self and being okay. And you always have the next day, to start again. And so some examples of Sankalpas or intentions, if you're getting started on that journey, would be, like I said, we're keeping them very general and simple, and then you can change and transform as time goes on. So an example is, I am healthy. And notice there's going to be a lot of I am statements in these, which is that, that positive affirmation, that positive speak. So example, I am healthy. Example 2, I am able to take time for myself every day. I am able to take time for myself every day. That's if maybe someone has a very busy schedule and they're always like, oh, I can't. Now you're saying, I am capable, I am able, I will make time for myself, even if it's 2 minutes a day just to sit with quiet. Keeping it very general, no expectation there yet. And then I am attaining inner peace. I am attaining inner peace. Next one, I am becoming stronger each day. I am becoming stronger each day. Next one, my life is worthwhile. My life is worthwhile. The next one, I can make time for self-care. I can make time for self-care. I will be kind to myself. This next one, I will be kind to myself. The next one, I will treat myself and body with kindness and respect. I will treat my body, myself and body with kindness and respect. The next one, I welcome health and wellness. I welcome health and wellness. And I am grateful for peace of mind. I am grateful for peace of mind. And the last example, I will allow myself to enjoy this life. I will allow myself to enjoy this life. And so these examples of Sankalpas, which can be called intentions, affirmations, resolutions, or resolves to do something. That's very basic ways to start, right? These can be like, you could even say your intention is, I want to be healthy this year. So then your Sankalpa would be, I am healthy. You're accepting yourself, saying, I am healthy. You're already changing that mindset. And then what's fun is your Sankalpa can then work side by side with your goals and a New Year's resolution. So you could have the Sankalpa itself and be that change. I am healthy. And then when you go out, when you do things, when you cook, when you eat, you take all these things into consideration. You park further, so you have to walk a little more into the grocery store or whatnot. But then you can look at, okay, I have this Sankalpa and I'm giving gratitude to myself. How can this work side by side now with a New Year's resolution? If we want to keep it a little more West, what can we do? So now you could use that statement to support goals and resolutions. So maybe now you're like, all right, I got this down. what are my steps now to maybe create a resolution? So if I want to be healthy, I am healthy. Now, what's my plan here? How can I keep in mind what I'm doing, how I'm going to change it? How am I going to be healthy? And then you could write, I'm going to be more aware at the grocery store of reading ingredient labels. I'm going to shop on the outskirts of the store to find more vegetables and fruits and not so much processed or boxed foods. Or I'm going to walk the track at my job for, 3 times when I'm on my lunch break. And that now is taking your Sankalpa. It's already connected to your heart. It's already starting to change in your mind. Now you're allowing it to intertwine and build into a resolution, into, goals that you have, specifics and details, because it's just beneficial to start the Sankalpa very general, very simple, very positive, because then it allows this openness, this space of understanding and allowance to see, how does that work for me? How does this thing of what I'm saying, how does that transform me? And it doesn't limit you, and you're not so hard on yourself right then and there. Because when we have these super intense details of New Year's resolutions and goals and we don't hit them, we can forget that that's okay, that we have to adapt and change and maybe, work with the goals. But when you have this Sankalpa and you're just saying for 40 days, I am healthy, it's right then and there, it's in the mind, and you're just off the bat, you're that day one. Now I'm getting up and I'm walking blase instead of, driving there. So you want to go to the corner store, I'm going to walk there instead, so you already just, it kind of does something different because it connects to your heart and your mind, that mind, body, spirit aspect of it, versus a New Year's goal. So that is what I have for these Sankalpas and goals. I just wanted it to be more of like a more informal, not so much the PowerPoints. Now, relating a Sankalpa to like in that relation of neuroplasticity that I mentioned. So that talk I do have on YouTube. You can find it if you aren't sure what neuroplasticity is or what I'm talking about. And it can relate to your Sankalpa because, like I mentioned, we have these, our brain cells, our memories, our habits, all this stuff going on in our head. And some of these things are unconscious because we do them so much we don't think about it. But when you come into awareness, when you come back to yourself, when you come back to your intention and you slow down, can be helpful. That kind of brings into the forefront, into clarity, what are the habits I have, or what are the things I do that are looking to change, adapt, transform. And so we talk about in neuroplasticity to build new roads, to build new habits, to build new kind of positive mindsets and things that can keep us on a track that we're looking to be on in that time in life. It takes affirmation. It can take things like Sankalpa, because the Sankalpa also welcomes that connection to self, that awareness, that bringing the unconscious into consciousness by finding this time for quiet that allows this openness to just let the revelations and things come into us as ourselves are requesting. And so it is a very transformative space, and it just it gets rid of the negative aspect of what a New Year's resolution or goal might have. But it can also be, like I said, interesting that they can also support one another. And having that side of the Sankalpa can welcome this gratitude and love for self that maybe just having a New Year's resolution wouldn't. And then, if you do have a physical resolution or something also, and you don't hit it at those specifics, that's okay. You just adapt and transform, and you have love for yourself and understanding for yourself. And it just makes a world of difference there. So you're not so hard on yourself thinking it's a all or nothing kind of mindset. So, I am open if you have any questions. I really appreciate you being here and clicking on. I did, as I mentioned, this is being recorded. So if you missed anything that I said in the beginning, I will post this to the, there's a meetup group. If you found that in meetup group, or I don't know if you found on Eventbrite, I will post it in the meetup group. If you're not a part of the meetup group, you can be a part of the meetup group. It's just literally on meetup.com. You can find the Smiles Yoga Wellness Meditation group, or just look up Carmita Smiles and I'll pop up. And so then you can watch the full video. You can take any notes or things that you missed. And or you can just let me know if you have any questions. I'm all ears. You should be able to unmute yourself if you have any questions. Otherwise, I appreciate your time this morning. Look out for the post in the video, and there's some other virtual talks and workshops coming up. I have a yoga basics workshop coming up. I have some live events coming up. So just depending on where you're located. And I appreciate you being here, and I encourage you to come back or hang out or attend another class. I do virtual classes too. So. So I don't know if you had anything on your mind that you had a question about. Oops. Let me, oops. I'm just trying to get the screen the volume to go up in case you had a question. I don't know if I didn't see anything in the chat. Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and definitely stay in touch. If you are unsure of how to find anything I mentioned, you can always go to carmitasmiles.com. So it's just my name, CARMITA smiles.com. So thanks so much. You have a beautiful day.